everyone. Welcome to the N2Women meeting session. Thank you for joining us, first of all. And before we begin the session, I'd like to give an overview of actually what we had originally planned for the diversities and inclusions initiatives with MMSys. So on behalf of the diversities and inclusions co-chairs of this MMSys program, I can update you on we were able to secure funds to support travel, to provide travel support for non-student, minorities, and less privileged attendees. We will also have some funds for a luncheon with N2Women meetings. And we also had funds for childcare support for the conference. So we had all of these funds, but due to the COVID-19, now everything becomes online virtual. All of these are automatically postponed to next year. So we will have all of this initiatives still going on for next year's conference in 2021. Please keep this in mind when you are planning your attendance for 2021, and watch out for the website for announcement on how to get these funds, how to access to these funds. So I'd just like to announce that first, and then let's get started with our N2Women session. I'd like to introduce our host/moderator of the day, Hiba Yusuf. She's the student fellow representing N2Women today. She's a PhD candidate at the Stream Root and the Telecom Paris Tech, and she worked closely with our faculty mentor Özgü from Kos University. So they put together a fantastic session for today. So I'll hand it over for Hiba, so she can start from now.
So hello everyone, can you hear me?
Yes.
So thank you all for attending this event. We regret not meeting you all physically, but we hope we will for the next meetings. We are pleased to organize this N2Women event for the first time at MMSys conference. So thanks Salif and the co-chairs for giving us this room. And first, it would be great to start with a few words about N2Women with Katia Jeffres-Runzer, if I pronounce it correctly, who's one of the board of co-chairs, and she is currently she has a HDR, and she is at University of Toulouse. I'll just share my screen. And Katia, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me correctly?
Yep.
Yep. Wonderful. Hello, everyone.
Unless you have something to share, I will share my screen.
No problem. Thank you so much. So on behalf of N2Women, I'm very happy to see this meeting taking place. Of course, it would have been nice to be physically together, but really we appreciate all the efforts of the diversity regarding this organization from MMSys to have it happen. Thank you so much. Really, we appreciate a lot. So N2Women is a discipline-specific group where we try to offer networking opportunities to researchers in the fields of networking and communications. So we have an overlap with the MMSys community, and so that's why we got in touch to get this event organized. So it's a group that has been started in 2006 by Tracy Kemp and Wendy Heinzelman as an informal meeting, where the idea is to have women and men connect together in a, let's say, more laid-back situation to create some better some nice environments for the new students to connect to the maybe more experienced researchers in our field. So the point is really to foster networking and networking opportunities for all the attendees of the meeting. So since few years now, Damla Turgut from UCF and I are chairing this group, and we are trying to collect various funds to organize the events that you see here, where a young researcher is organizing a panel discussion together with maybe less formal discussions in order to start the discussion among all the attendees. So our fellow is Hiba this year. We're very happy that she has applied and that she has received this fellowship. And generally, they get reimbursed. They get a student's travel grant for organizing all this meeting. And the most interesting part is that they get to discuss and organize this event with the organizer of the conference. So this is our model. We have various other efforts in the group. Just go to our webpage, you see all the different activities we have. We have mentoring opportunities. We have workshops that we organize once or twice per year, which are full day workshops. So don't hesitate to get back to us in case you have some questions.
Thank you, Katia. Thanks you for this introduction. So to continue our session today, we'll talk about the experiences and the connections with our distinguished panelists. And we have first with us Lucile SASSATELLI. She's an academic professional. She's now associate professor at University Côte d'Azur since 2009. And her work interests are mainly in the problem of multimedia transmission and streaming virtual reality, so close to the MMSys conference. So hello, Lucile. Also, we have Özgü Alay. Hope that I'm pronouncing correctly. Özgü, she's also an associate professor at the Department of Informatics of the University of Oslo. And she's currently head of Mobile Systems and Analytics, Mosaic, Department of Simula Metropolitan. She's another academic professional, and her main work interests are the intersection of multimedia and mobile networks and the evaluation of multimedia performance over 3G, 4G, and 5G networks. Our third panelist is Laura Toni, I think, who attended the MMSys, now know her well. She's assistant professor at University of London, UCL, and her main work interests are the system optimization and online learning for immersive communications. So hello, Laura, again. We have also Tania Pouli. She's like her experience is a mix between industry and academia. Now after she finished PhD and postdoc positions, she started some industry positions, and now she's a deputy lab manager at the Advanced Media Content Laboratory at IRT BCom in Rennes, France. And her work interests are mainly in the HDR range imaging and color. And last but not least, we have our junior researcher, Aakanksha Rana, which is doing now postdoc, and she's a senior researcher at Harvard University after she finished her PhD at Telecom Paris. And now she's working machine learning for immersive technologies, HDR, VR, and AR, and in general multimedia signal processing and medical imaging. So, hello, can you hear us? And just before starting the session, if you want to ask any question for the panelists, just please join us at slido.com. And the session is MMSys 20 with the passcode MMSys rocks.
And I was also, when it comes to the question sessions, I'll share my screen of a Slido so that everyone can see the questions.
That's great, thank you. So can you unmute yourselves, my panelists, my dear?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So just okay. So our first topic focuses on keeping a healthy life-work balance for young researchers who always find it difficult to get out of the research mode and separate between work and life needs. So here my first question comes, like finding a work-life balance is a myth, and especially for young women. Like, what do you see about this? Please, like we have a poll here, if you can access it. to see the audience's point of view on this question. Mia, can you share your screen? I can.
Sorry, you want me to share screen?
Yeah,
Okay.
for Slido in the polls.
Okay. Nope, this one is not the right one. I think I lost my presentation screen again. It keeps disappeared on me. Oh, I see. I know why. I got too many of them on mine. Okay, let me clean up a little bit.
It's just interesting to see the point of view for audience before moving to the panelists.
Yeah.
If they accept
so I
or not.
think I got it here.
Maybe we can ask them to vote. There is only 12 votes so far.
Show the poll. So here's the poll here.
Okay.
Everybody can see it? Okay.
Yes.
That's interesting. So what do you think our panelists about this question? I'll start with Lucile.
Yes, so thank you for the invitation. Okay, so maybe I'm going to be a bit provocative. Let's start this way. But indeed, I think it's important to question the very concept, as you did, of work-life balance, which I found a bit disturbing, actually, because I think it implies several assumptions that are good to discuss and to make explicit so that we can avoid being stuck in our, let's say, initial women condition. For example, asking this question, I think in a women meeting may imply that this question is more specific to women than men. And why would it be? Because it should not, but it is. So, and it is because women are still mostly tasked with domestic chores and caring for kids. And it also supposes that at some point, because we are also talking about young researchers here, we are expected to have kids and to one in all. We always hear this line, right? You can have it all. And yes, I think that, I mean, for me, at least for me, it's really crucial to analyze this problem of life management, work balance, to realize that all these implicitly conveyed assumptions, expectations, and prescriptions somehow on what we want is actually the very reflect of the social pressure that applies on women, specifically on early career women. And yes, so I think that really, I mean, for me, understanding that I think that the guilt associated with always trying to look for the perfect or the right or the acceptable work-life balance, understanding that this guilt was actually rooted in the social pressure that we don't realize if we don't properly analyze it and if we are not sufficiently aware of basically gender studies somehow, right? This is very important to be able to finally identify what is good for us. So this is how I could identify what is good for me and not too much for some kind of norms. And yes, so I think that basically that is my point of view on that. And that is why I answered the poll with I agree that this is kind of a myth, because it depends on what you call work, what you call life. At some point, I guess we can discuss more about that. But yes, work and life are so.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's really interesting. And Laura, do you accept with her, or do you have another point?
So thanks for the invitation, and thanks, Lucile, also for the very nice start, especially provocative one. I agree. I completely agree. It's a myth that to me it does not exist. I would say that rather than work-life balance, to me is more work-life surviving or survival mood. I feel I constantly fail in managing that, and I don't see how this is possible. So if you really call work the work we do and life the life you want to have, that's quite impossible. I think that's tough for any person that is a parent, and for being parent, I mean really taking care of children. So the question is who actually has this responsibility, and all the possible aspects also related to what Lucile is doing. At least that went to me, this balance was very difficult. Before family, it was still fine because I really have plenty of time.
Wow, that's encouraging. Okay, so.
But yes, it's just a short hint since I know you have other questions. So.
Oh, that's nice anyway. And Özgü?
Okay, shall I take it maybe a little bit from the positive side, just to balance it out a little bit? So I think I would say it is mostly a myth, but I also need to add it really depends, right? Because from my perspective, it depends on different factors. How ambitious you are. You want to be the top one, you want to survive, you want to be one of the good ones. So what do you want to achieve with your work life, or what is your ambition? I think this is a very important aspect of it. If you really want to be on the top of the which we all, I guess, but I also believe there are different levels of it as well. So it also, I think, depends on where are you in terms of, do you have a good team? Are you part of a good team that is supportive, that can lift you in the work environment? And maybe also the support you get from your family and what you get at home. So if all the stars align, I think it might be achievable. And I have to say, if you have a good supporting system, if you have a good team at work, and if your expectations are in a sense aligned, they are aligned with your ambitions and what you can produce. We have 24 hours, 7 days. Maybe it is okay. Maybe it's not a myth then. But there are a lot of ifs. Even I say it's a little bit on the positive side. It is difficult. It is very difficult with family. Eva, you are muted still.
I was saying that's true. We have to prioritize our things. And thank you for your answer. And Tania, what do you think about this?
Yeah, I agree with pretty much everyone. I mean, especially when children come in the equation, you get just pulled apart in so many different ways that any semblance of balance is just kind of, you're just trying to cram as much as you can into a day and try to survive. But at the same time, yeah, we do need to think about our priorities, our actual goals, let's say, both on the work side and on the life side of things, and try and come up with something realistic. Because obviously, if you want to be, I don't know, like the perfect researcher that is completely at the top of your game, you're participating at every event that you get asked and so on and so forth, you're on a plane all the time, but you also want to be an amazing parent to, I don't know, like a huge family and homeschool your kids, then, you know, something's got to give. You're not going to have the time and the resources to do everything. So you do have to choose. Is it harder for women? Yeah, probably.
Okay.
But, you know.
And that's the point of view for seniors. And how about juniors? So Aakanksha, what do you say?
I certainly agree with most of the panelists. And from the positive aspect, I would say that, yeah, it depends on how we prioritize things. And so far, like I because I'm not into that family mode now. So, I mean, I'm kind of doing it pretty well. So I don't see that much of a pressure. But I do feel that probably for women, it becomes harder, you know, when they go up the ladder in their career phase. And I've seen, like, you know, my mother is also into research and these things. So, you know, I have seen her as well, like how she struggles. And I've seen all the fellow researchers that I had, my mentors and everyone. But I think still, it's all about, you know, how we prioritize our goals and objectives, and also all the social factors which play an important role in how we go. Yeah.
Okay, nice to hear that. So I'll move to my second questions, which is, in your opinion, what are the biggest challenges faced by women in tech regarding maintaining a work-life balance that are not typically faced by their male counterparts? And what solutions have you found and strategies that you have utilized to attain the balance that you have now and that helped you to excel? So let's start with Özgü this time.
Okay. So I think the main challenge starts from us being the minority, right? So I guess in general in tech we are less than 30%, in some areas much less than that. And it just comes with the challenges of being minority. So it's sometimes designed for a different group of people, and we basically face these challenges. But I guess as a senior, the main challenge started, as Laura mentioned, when you have family, because then you have travel restrictions, you have working hour restrictions, and you want to balance the family life with your work life. And I think it becomes like a two-edged sword in a sense, because you are minority at work, it is already difficult. But at home, you're also expected by it's the norm that mother take care of the kids, so they spend more time and more energy with the kids. It might not be the case for everyone. I don't want to really generalize it in a sense, but that I think most people accept that is usually the case. So that balance is I think it was very difficult for me to handle as well. So that those are kind of the things I felt like I'm falling back while I was very keeping up with everybody before I have family. Then I didn't put all the hours in. I couldn't have all the unregular working hours in. So that was, I think, one of the main challenges. So if you want to go how to handle it or how to find a way out of it, I think one thing that worked was to set my priorities straight and also lower expectations, because I feel like it's usually always about the expectations. If you put those expectations high, it is good, you can fight for it, but it's also a recipe for, in a sense, maybe failure, or at least you will feel like that. So lowering a little bit expectations at least was important, and asking for help was also important, either at work or at home, trying to just get the support of the family, my husband, and everyone around me. So that helps quite a bit. And I think one important aspect of this, at least for me, was I put quality over quantity. So I try to basically focus on the things I want to do, maybe produce less, but good work, so that I am still relevant. So I'm still in the community. Maybe I don't have tens of papers that I have before, but I still kind of part of the community with good quality work I do. So I think those kind of those are the things that helped me to work out this challenge a little bit better.
Oh, that's really inspiring. And Tania?
So yeah, I think I'm pretty much on the same message. What I would add is that this, let's say, compromise between and the need to make choices also puts a mental and psychological load as well. The men may not have to the same degree. Even when you do balance things, even when you do manage to balance your calendar out so that you have enough hours, to dedicate to family, to dedicate to work. I don't know, personally, at least I feel that I struggle with being 100% at either of the things. And even if we look at, I don't know, just the aspect, even if family helps and the husband helps and so on and so forth, even aspects such as the fact that, okay, women do, if they decide to have children, do have to deal with a pregnancy and the side effects of it and a recovery from it, that already puts them at a disadvantage, because that just takes the time that it takes and there's nothing you can do about it. At the same time, yeah, I think prioritizing, as we said, what also I've learned to do to better balance things is basically just saying no, which has been difficult. I think a lot of us have a tendency to just accept everything and try to prove that we can do it all, and actually learning to just say no to things, even if we're tempted, even if they sound interesting, because we just can't do everything, is really crucial. And then the other thing that maybe I can offer as a viewpoint, what I found is that finally in industry, reaching a more or less balanced state, I actually found it easier, because I found it easier to separate work and then personal family life, and actually keep work at work and life at life and at home and so on, which I think may be harder in academia given how involved we tend to get.
Okay. So we have now prioritizing, expectation, getting help from others. And what can you add, Laura, here?
Hi. So yes, in terms of challenges, I agree all. And as also Tania said, I feel like maternity leaves and pregnancy is what really clearly differentiate also for men, for example. So even if you assume that we are in, maybe most of us, in a good society in which men load at home is still the same as women, which I think is not always the case. But even if that, maternity is something that you have it, and it's not only the few months you take as leave, is really the whole. So the fact that you start to be exhausted at the very end, and even if you're working, your brain is not always there. And after you are exhausted, like constantly, and even when you go back to work, you are, at least I was fully worried about the baby. So that's something that it's a bond that keeps you always a little bit there. And also I think when my kids were baby, they were all about me, not about my husband. So he could disappear for an entire week. I could not. So travels is impossible. So some colleagues of mine, even with small children, they leave for a week or 2 weeks. For me, that's like, no way, that's impossible. So that for sure, I think it's something that we face. It's like, it has an impact on the work. Said that, another difficult that is not for women, but maybe is really for parents at large, is that sometimes family goes on the opposite side of work in terms of decision. For example, moving, I think I moved a lot during my career. And now it's also when maybe the career would say, maybe you could move again, or you could consider other option, or, you know, wherever brings you. And it's also where family, it kind of, you have a different priority. So that's a little bit the difficulty, I think. Solution, I agree completely with Özgü. Actually, it seems very bad, but we are all managing. So, you know, I think the point is you cannot do all. I felt it was impossible for me to work a half day, but when COVID arrived, I had to. And I had a to-do list that is infinite, but in the end, you get very efficient, you prioritize, your kids help you to understand that you don't need to sleep the whole night, and you had a lot of coffee, you are always working till late if you cannot, and sometimes you're tired. I understand that, it's fine. When you really cannot take it anymore, you sleep, and that's okay. So I think what is really important is to understand that at least in the academia, the work never stops. It's actually even more. So say no, but also what I try to do is when I'm at home, I'm at home. My kids go to bed very early. That I think is the secret for any kind of possible balance you want to find, because you know that after 8:30, you have everything. So if I have deadlines or if I have stuff, that's a vital moment for me to survive. Beyond that, an excellent team. So I have amazing students. So it's true that now I have kids and I have less time, but my students do really most of the job. I have to say that that's really, really great. And also last thing, I had the great support at UCL. I can have any flexible hours I want. And what my head of department told me, you don't have to be ashamed to say that you cannot do this because you have to go home because of school runs or anything. And that I think it's really like what everybody should do. Like we have family, we need to take care of them. We have sometimes to leave, and then we will catch up with that whenever we can.
That's really nice. And how about you, Lucile?
Yes, I also completely, I mean, I was about to say almost exactly what Tania said. So I'm probably only the one that don't have kids. But I think also for my case, for example, I've got dependent parents, and it's not only for kids that women are kind of tasked with caring for others, but that can be in other family situations. And I think that as other speakers said, for me, what's really important is to really understand that we do not have to feel guilty. So basically trying to really learn to distinguish what we want, what we actually want from what the others want from us, and identifying what's important for us and what we want from what is not and what we don't is very, very important. And in this regard, learning to say no, I mean, learning it's indeed important to learn it, but at some point, sometimes you cannot say no. Sometimes you don't want to say no. So when you can and when you want, being able to say no is very, very important, because progressively that's going to lead you to enable you to focus on more intellectually rewarding activities, and that is really key to to be happy in our life, in order to be happy in our work. This is kind of the same. And yes, and this aspect is also very important at some point to have the work that becomes more and more kind of a desired part of life. And I think this is also important to become kind of tolerant. Meaning that I think it's also important. This is something that I had difficulties seeing when I was younger, but that understanding that situations evolve. And it's not because you're having okay, in the very first years, and then regularly over several weeks in a row, you have to work very, very hard, but that can also vary over time. And this comes also from the flexibility of our work, and being able to enjoy the lighter phases, the lighter moments, without feeling guilty, not working 14 hours a day. I think it's very important to find over time also this kind of equilibrium, even though it's not a day-to-day balance that we can get.
Okay, thank you so much. So we have now, like, since I noticed that the major number of registrations came from PhD students, so we have this question for you. And for younger researchers in general, with all the pressure and all the stress we have in our PhD, especially now for the remote work, I'll pass this question to Aakanksha, who finished her PhD 2 years ago. How did you manage to keep a good work-life balance during your PhD, Aakanksha?
Yeah, so for me, well, when I was doing a PhD, there was no lockdown, so it was pretty good in that sense. You know, I could go out and I could have some attend some sort of meetups and other tech events where I used to just talk with researchers. I think talking really helps to take out your stress. So having a good peer group and to discuss your situation, and even your, like, I had good supervisors in that sense. I could talk with them, like, if whatever kind of pressure that I'm facing. So that's how I kind of release my whole stress. But even in current times where we all are sort of, enclosed in our homes and we cannot go out and we cannot, I understand it's hard, like, to work virtually all the time and, to work remotely all the time. But I still feel like just, have some positivity. And I don't have any other solution, unfortunately, having just set up talks virtually as much as you can, but just to be positive during this phase, because it'll pass. And but otherwise, for other stressful situation, I would say, like, for young students and everyone else, like, to be more active socially and try to get some more insights and have some different options open for you. And yeah.
Thank you for advices. So before, I don't know if we'll have time for the next topic, but let's move to some questions from the audience. First, Luca, just agree with you, Lucille and Laura. So thank you, Luca, on behalf of Laura and Lucille. And the second question is from me. I can see well on this share screen. I'll move here. So the second question is from Mia. Her question is how to survive as a junior staff member in academia, in case of difficulty in ST situations like conflict of interest with dominant censor in same group, giving huge differences in gender, ethnicity, just I feel that, ethnicity and personality, etc. So I'll pass this question to Tania.
So yeah, in terms of academia, I can't help too much because my experience is limited.
Sorry, my bad.
But I think, yeah, conflict of interest can exist anywhere. I think it does depend on what the situation is. Discussion, talking, and trying to find a middle ground is always the first step, I think, whenever there's any disagreement, even if that is not always easy. There will be times as well where the conflict is not really solvable, where there are people out there to get you, whether you're man, woman, young or old. So in those cases, I think, I don't know, in cases like that I have faced, I try to figure out a solution, to find a different person to work with, a different direction to take, and basically try and avoid burning bridges while trying to kind of still do the work. I don't think there is a perfect answer to this. I don't know, someone might have a better suggestion.
Maybe we can hear from Özgü for the academia differences.
It is a difficult situation, definitely. So I have been in similar situations. I think what helped me is I did some blind mentoring. It's basically you find someone that you can trust as a senior, maybe not in the same group, of course, but you define the problem without giving names. So you try to basically tell your story as a kind of a third person, or without. Some people can understand what is happening, but mentioning names make it very personal. I know it is personal, but I think sometimes making it a little bit not personal can help. And if you can basically communicate this, and try to get help from seniors in the same school, maybe, who knows how the system works. Those type of I call them blind mentoring is I find them useful. I still do that. I have a couple of colleagues, and sometimes I just give them a call, say, I need your mentoring. I just tell what happened without giving names, without saying who, what, this and that, and just listen to them. I think that might be at least one option he or she can try.
Thank you. So I'll take the next question. How do you find the current work from home situation? Do you find it better for like work-life balance? And I'll pass this question to Lucille, if you can.
Yes, so well, I'm probably not very representative since I don't have kids. So for me, I must say it's been almost paradise because basically all the external constraints, I mean, all external physical constraints went away. So we have a very large campus here. It might take me 2 hours round trip to go just for a meeting of 1 hour in Nice from Sofia Antipolis. So in this way, it well, basically it freed myself. It freed me from a lot of constraints. But clearly, I mean, I have friends and I have my brother, and I know it's been hell managing the kids at home. It's been just hell. So I think maybe others will have a more interesting stuff to tell.
It's nice like to see with kids and without kids with you, Laura. How do you say for that?
Well, I think it's not easy. It has been very difficult. I have to say I'm quite, however, positive on that, in the sense of I actually felt with COVID, I actually stopped for a moment and I was able to balance a little bit better the work and life. I have to say that my partner is highly supporting me. So I think we kind of balance our workload together, and we always try to arrange one meeting against the others, and etc. Kids are always there. It's a mess, yes, but I think it's also everybody is on Zoom with kids in the background. Kids sometimes appearing during the call, and that it's really, whether it's man or a woman, whether it's junior or senior, I felt that was amazing because we get to see more humanity of people working, even high level people. So on one side, and then also I could stay a lot with my kids. I was traveling a lot before, commuting 1 hour also to go and 1 hour even more to come back home. And all that is gone. I have more time, so less time to work, need to be more efficient, work almost every night, but I spend actually more time with my family. So it needed some readjusting, but I think you managed to balance.
Okay, thank you. I'll move to the second topic and we'll come back to the questions if you will have time. So as Özgü mentioned, you started talking about mentoring and how important is it to have a good mentor in our lives, like even if you are junior or senior, whatever, it's always important to have someone who can help. So thinking of young researchers who feel sometimes a bit lost in how and where to land and how to behave and to start to organize the work, having a mentor is priceless. So the first question that came to my mind here is, do you have any mentoring activities, either formal or not formal? It would be nice to hear about your experiences. So I'll start with Özgü, since you started this discussion.
I mean, when I was a student, I think maybe about this mentoring, the first thing I can suggest to younger researchers is just don't be shy. Open to listening, open to be asking a lot of questions. People will usually not say no if you reach out to them. Don't wait this mentoring come to you. Just go to this mentoring, whatever form, career, personal advice, whatever form it will be. So I have done quite a bit. I still do. Even in my career, as I say, I do this blind mentoring with a couple of colleagues now and then. And I try to be open to whoever comes and asks me about my experience. There is nothing formal, I would say, but we also have some initiatives in the university that I try to be part of. So that is also something I'm following up to see how can I contribute. Also, how can I also learn from others. But I mean, I think it is really important to have a positive attitude or an open attitude to listening from whoever is willing to, or whoever is around you. So don't discriminate young, experience, this and that, but just try to observe. That is probably kind of the most effective way of doing it, rather than a formal organization of it. So that will be basically my suggestion, and that is still what I'm doing for my career.
That's really nice. And Laura, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with Özgü. I have to say that there are several levels of mentorship, right? Like for sure, I feel like we constantly have a mentorship role with our students. At the same time, I think some of these more formal chat, not formal, but even chat that we try to organize, even like the first events, the first night of the MMSys, in which we try to have some chat and discussion, is always a way to get in contact with people. And the more you can do that, the better the more connection you might have. And I agree with Özgü, not be shy and try to talk to people, and bear in mind that I think having mentoring is key. I constantly have send emails to my former supervisor, so I think they will be your mentor for life. And yeah.
Yeah, that's really important. And Lucile, how about mentoring for you,
Yes.
like your experiences in that?
So I'm yeah. Actually, it's a bit interesting because we in France specifically we didn't talk about mentoring at all in the last 15 years, and now it's starting to really take off. I mean, in terms of fully institutionalized activities. I think that mostly it's important also for young researchers to not, I would say, try to have official mentors, but to really try to connect with people with whom you feel comfortable within your professional environment. And then I think that we all have these experiences that in tough moments, in tough periods of the PhD thesis, or some difficulties that may arise throughout the career, we have these people have been key, even though they are not officially tagged as mentors. And on the other way, I think it's also important because this is something that we've been discussing in some other conference, but it's also important, I think, not to get focused too much on having a mentor, and not to try, because there are all these mentoring activities now, and I think it's important for young researchers not to be too worried about not having an official mentor, or not being involved in some official mentoring activities. I think it is helpful, but somehow also I think that what's very important for me, and it also connects back to the other questions about how do you deal with difficulties that may arise, or some harsh situations you might be caught in. I think that being informed is really, really important. I think that mentors are one of the way that you can get informed, that you can get information about how things work, because you don't know how things work, how the unofficial, let's say, politically way of behaving works when you're entering either a new domain or just a new level in your work. And getting informed is very, very important. And for example, I would say that, for example, for me, I had some difficulties, like some conflicts with some colleagues at some moments when entering a workplace. And that's not so much I mean, talking with, I didn't find specifically other people that had specific good words for me on how to behave. But a long time when realizing by reading, by listening to people in conferences or whatever, by realizing that I had a certain way of perceiving the situation. Typically, okay, you always question yourself, right? When you come from an underrepresented group in a certain workplace, for example, so either a woman or basically, let me be very clear, if you're not a Western white guy in his 30s or 40s, then it's you are not in the majority group. And it's not a priori problem, it's just that when there is a problem, then you tend to question yourself, because there is always this, I mean, okay, I'm speaking for me here, but as far as I've seen, this might be a general feeling. There's always this underlying feeling that you are about to fail, that you might be the source of the problem, that you might have done something wrong, that might have led to this situation. And understanding understanding how things work, and understanding the inner reasons for you perceiving the situation this way is very important. This is something that a mentor can help bring, but finding information may not necessarily require a mentor. So I insist on that, because I think it's also sometimes it's not very efficient to try to absolutely have a mentor when there's not a true connection, like people sending out emails, trying to connect. I think this is not really efficient. It's nice when it works, but when it doesn't necessarily work because, okay, you didn't have the opportunity, you didn't find the right people in the right conferences, then that's fine. It's just that you might get this information through some other medium, and you might find someone to talk about specific questions later on in your trajectory.
Okay, cool. Maybe also the mentors can help us just like on how and why it's important for women to enlarge their connections, which is my second question. So, especially for young researchers, we always have this problem on how to start and to find our connections and to build our network. So, in industry, how it is like, Tania?
I think in industry, okay, I am in research-oriented industry, so there's a bit of the same aspects of conferences, social events and conferences and so on that happen in academia as well. So this works in the same way, especially with building connections to people outside of your company. Obviously in industry, I think it's especially in big companies. So currently I'm in a smaller company, so we're about 300 people. You pretty much know everyone, at least by face. In a bigger company where you might have units all across the globe, you need to involve yourself, you need to put yourself out there, you need to try and get yourself into events that would allow you to meet people. And fortunately or unfortunately, that's pretty much the only way to do it, because otherwise you just will never cross those people, even though you're working in the same company. I think in industry there's also a bit of a more sensitive, let's say, issue with networking and connections, because in a lot of cases you might find yourself in events or in shows where you will meet other colleagues from industry, but they're technically competitors. So there's no, you need to be careful how much you connect, how much you share, how you balance the kind of social aspect of connecting for personally enhancing your network, and how you connect to enhance your company's network, which I think is less sensitive perhaps when you're working on an academic environment.
Okay, and Aakanksha?
Yeah, I think that, you know, that's pretty much what we have in academia. We have like conferences, which are the basically go-to place for all the students, especially, you know, who are young enough, who just entered their PhD. I think it's very important for them to have some exposure from conferences and several meetups that they have in their, you know, local surroundings in their cities, and university-wide events. You know, I think it's very important for students to just, you know, push themselves a little bit toward these places, and that's how pretty much, you know, it goes.
But now with the lockdown, we don't have any physical meetings, any meetups.
Yeah,
So
that's
what can we do?
that's a bit of a challenging situation, and you know, I mean, virtually it's more like, you know, how you can just write up to people directly, but that doesn't work all the time. So I mean, you can't have that opportunity for sure, you know, in virtual meetings, because everyone cannot have the opportunity to just talk out loud, right? Or when you are in a big group of people. But I'm sure it won't be like this forever. You know, like I say, it's just we might go virtual definitely in some cases, but there will always be events, you know. So
We hope so.
yeah,
And
I hope
Özgü,
so.
Yes, it is challenging at these times, but connections are really important. So everybody need to spend some effort on that. So normally, what I suggest to my students, what I was doing when I was younger was uh, just try to kind of go people and talk to people, but be aware of what they are doing so that I can talk about their work. We are researchers, we have egos, we like people coming to us and talking about our work. So I think it opens up quite a lot of doors. And sometimes if you're in a conference, find a wingman, one of the seniors around you that can introduce you to some people. So that also I find quite useful. In Corona times, it is hard, but again, if you are interested to meet people, just go look at their work, check out their work, and then maybe start a conversation around their work. I think it's probably the easier way of getting a connection and starting the discussion around some of the things they have done and talk about what else can be done and so on and so forth. So that might be a good way of initiating a conversation these times, and hopefully when we go back, still the conferences probably are the best places to meet people.
Mhm. And Lucile, what tips you have?
To build connections, you mean? So I think it's very important specifically after the PhD, while during the PhD and after the PhD, to try to enlarge our vision and our knowledge, and to have new connections. It's also of course crucial to do that. So then it depends on the situation, of course. You might also be in a good environment where you might end up for example, in a new lab where you can make new internal connections easily. For external connections, okay, apart from everything that has been said on conferences and meeting people. For me, one thing that I've done and that worked quite well was to initiate. So that was after the PhD, or at the end of the PhD and after the PhD, but to initiate answers to research calls. So when there is a research call, trying to figure out just a sketch of a research proposal, and then reach out to the people you would like to work with, or to connect more with because of their work, because you find that their work is interesting, their approaches are sound, and try to involve them in the answer to the call. So just proposing to contribute, or to even suggest some research directions. And this is what I did when I was in postdoc specifically. And that was very efficient actually, because even though then if the proposal is rejected, if it's not selected at the end and the project is not funded, you've established very, thorough connections with the people that you've worked with, because you've already exchanged ideas, so you have common ideas to work on, and it's very it's much easier then to follow up on that and to be able to connect and to find some other opportunities. So from a scientific point of view, I'm not talking about mentoring here, but trying to establish connections with people that you would like to work with, even though they are not physically in the neighborhood, or you don't get to attend to the same conferences or things like that. Connecting this way by really, bringing something, I found it quite efficient.
Ah, cool. So before I move to the questions, I want to hear from you, Laura, about this.
Yeah, I will be
what's
short
next?
because I know that you must have some questions.
Yes.
And many things have been already said. What I might add is that for a PhD, might be really good also to join summer schools and aspect like that, because it's really nice environment in which you get to know a lot of many peers. So many people that I've known in summer schools, and then find them back in London, in San Diego, and etc. And it's actually amazing. It's connections that remain forever. I'm not the type of person that really go to talk to people if I don't know them. So in big conferences, connecting is tough, but the small one like MMSys actually I think is a great conference, for example, in terms of size, because it's easier to meet people. Then, as others said, like also for students, I think internships and collaboration, visiting labs is very good, and sometimes is also a way to new connection, and then also job offers and aspect like that. Coronavirus is tough. We have less traveling, but we also have, for example, now the MMC Slack channel to chat, and maybe before we didn't have it, so we have new way of interacting. For junior faculty, I agree with Lucile. Like I actually made great connection just because there were some small grants to get funding to travels, and I contact people to see, do we want to have this type of grants together? You then discuss research, and then maybe this person comes to London or wherever you are, and then you meet them, and then you connect, and then things also can really be spontaneously sometimes just in that way, building new collaboration or writing new grants together.
Okay, I'll try to be fast for taking the questions. Before moving back to the first topic, we have Hajar, who said that his or her interconnections has grown during this pandemic and through this conference, and he or she is happy for this achievement. So we're happy, so too. Congrats. And I'll go back to the questions. We have two nice questions. First, for the prioritizing, Shruti said that as the prioritization is the key, how do you deal with the inherent guilt of prioritizing work over family life, or vice versa, prioritizing family life over work life? Maybe we can keep you, Laura, for this question, for the family and work life.
I think also maybe Tania mentioned at the beginning, you always feel like you're not doing enough in the job, you're not doing enough in the family. So I think you will feel guilty. But I think my advice is find your balance and find your equilibrium, right? So don't be too hard on yourself. Don't feel guilty if you do more of one thing or the other. Do whatever makes you feel happy and give you more energy to do the other stuff. It's very like subjective, I feel.
Yeah. And the second question from Francely, how do you know if you are working hard enough? Is there a limit for how much work you can do to balance work life, especially for junior faculty? So it's for you, Aakanksha.
Yeah, I think well, how do you know if you're working hard enough? So
You can't.
I think you always have the feeling that you want to work more and more. So because, it depends basically. I shouldn't say that it's not for everyone, but it's very subjective too. But I think if you're happy, that should, matter. So if you're happy with the way you're working, that should be the key. So, I mean, just try to achieve that happiness by making the balance between your work life and the professional and your personal life. And I mean, I don't know if there is any other recipe for work-life balance other than the happiness, or how would you quantify that too? I mean, it also matters. It's very subjective too.
Satisfaction and happiness, I think
Yeah.
they're good for this question. Okay, I think we're run out of time, already 16 minutes, but we started late. So thank you all very much for your attending, for your valuable experiences, and for your sharing all this with us. And hope to see you soon in next meetings physically. Hope so. And I wish you a good evening for everyone. And I think just like for the rest of the questions, we will reply to them just offline. So stay tuned.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much,
Thank you,
Hiba.
guys.
Thank you very much, Hiba.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
you.
Very nice meeting you.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
I think
Bye.
that ends today. Mia, if you want to say anything.
So very great session and lots of great ideas and very inspiring. And thank you, Hiba, and everyone from N2Women and our panelists for having such a great session. I'm actually very looking forward to next year when we actually be able to meet in person. And check our website for the new initiatives coming out for next year. And hopefully, this will be over by next year and we will all see each other in person.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. That ends the day. Ali, if you're on and you want to say goodbye. Otherwise, we see you tomorrow.
Sure. I really enjoyed this session. What can I say?
And
Well,
thanks again